Welcome to Sports, Clicks, and Politics with your hosts, Ben Hussong and me, Shawn Hannon. Welcome to episode 135 of Sports, Clicks, and Politics, the unmuted version of Sports, Clicks, and Politics. Thank you for noticing. I am Shawn Hannon, joined as always by the handsome and charming Mr. Ben Hussong. Mr. Ben Hussong, how was your weekends? Did we have 2 weekends? Oh, we only had one. Or did we have two? We had Memorial Day weekend.
We had Memorial Day weekend. Memorial Day weekend was spent at at Carrier Park out in East Syracuse for travel baseball tournament.
Okay, so that's the old Carrier manufacturing plant that is now a park?
Sure.
Okay. Oh, is that before your time here
that was
in the
before my time
CNY
here.
area? Yeah, pretty sure that was the air conditioning capital of the world for at some point. And then
it's not that anymore.
It's not anymore. It's a ballpark.
Yeah, it's hot. But it was fun. We did that. Worked a little bit at the shop, and then this past weekend, my parents are in town, so we did soccer, baseball, softball, all the usual stuff. Went out to Vesper Hills Golf Course.
I've heard of it.
Dinner on Saturday night. Highly recommended. Great food, unbelievable views of Atisco Lake. Highly recommend that. And good service as well, so that's a plus. Today is actually my 13th wedding anniversary with my wife. So happy anniversary
to
Kristen.
Yeah. Somehow
tolerated me for 13 years so far.
And me for 3 at least.
I know, like you've been a part of this now. And so it's been good. Good 2 weekends. How about you?
Well, we had our show birthday on June 1st, 2020. Right. That's where our very first show, right in the middle of the whole crazy. It was actually at the very end of the George Floyd riots / just at the beginning of COVID, right? So like we couldn't have picked a better time to start a show.
That worked out well.
That we were going to talk about the Anunnaki, and all of a sudden we're like COVID vaccines.
Then it became Tony Fauci
and ivermectin. We almost changed the name to the show to ivermectin, Hunter Biden, and something else. I can't remember what, but well, before we get into some topics, I'm going to ask everybody here to please do your fandom obligatory helping, supporting of the show, and liking the video, sharing the video, subscribing to the channel, leaving us a 5-star rate and review. All of that is much appreciated and help us get the show out there. So
for sure,
the viewers are going up at the SCAPP here show. So
as they should.
We got some cool. We got this first. I think it's going to be our first interview since we moved to Rumble on Wednesday,
and it's a good one.
We'll talk about that near the end of the show, or you can just read the thumbnail and you'll understand. But either way, we have an exclusive interview. Someone who's been with us in the past, but those videos seem to disappear out of the YouTubes anyway. So you can still get them back at the podcast home, but. Interesting conversation, to say the least.
For sure.
All right. Now, I'm going to cover this story, Mr. Hussong, only because I feel somewhat obligated, because this basically happened in our hometown, our hometown, right? So, national news, though. Faye, the mama swan taken from Manly's pond, was eaten on Memorial Day. This is from Syracuse.com. Thank you for the headline. Yeah, that's right. So first, a little bit of a background. Faye, short for Fayetteville, I'm guessing, since Manny is probably short for Manlius, Fayetteville Manlius.
I hate everybody.
So Faye and Manny are local legends. I think 18 years this specific couple has been residing in the Swan Pond there in town of Manlius, in a little southeast of Syracuse, central New York. Well, Memorial Day weekend, the day before Memorial Day, so whatever that was, I think it was Sunday, 3 teens hopped a fence, killed the swan, the mother swan, took 4 babies, cygnets they call them, the kids call them, whatever.
I didn't know that.
Manny stayed there by himself, is now alone, and they killed the mother, and to make the whole story just a media sensation that went pretty viral, Faye was eaten on Memorial Day by the family of one of the teens. Yeah. I mean, to say that the locals collectively lost their mind is an understatement.
I would concur with that.
I was
like 5 people get murdered here a week, and I got less news coverage of that.
Fair. I was, vilified is probably a strong word for a Facebook post, but people were not happy with before we got any names, the information was dripping out so slowly on this that it seemed a little bit weird early on. I was like, what the hell's going on here? Whatever. And then it turned out, obviously, everybody figured out why it was dripping out because I think people, I don't know. But anyway, so I'm laughing, which is terrible. I know.
I mean, look, objectively, it's kind of funny. I feel bad for the Swans, but
sure,
it's not like these people set out to go make some statement or go torture animals or anything else.
Yeah. So I had made I didn't think it was this absurd or wild or evil, but I made the only acceptable reason or answer for this, where you could be like, okay, I can get my head around that as the reason why the family ate the bird, is that they were immigrants and they didn't really know any better, and this was just somewhat customary, if you will, for their neck of the woods, not here.
Believe it or not, in some countries, it's weird to have town pets, and instead they look at animals as a food source only.
Now, that being said, that benefit of the doubt goes to the family for eating the bird. The kids who killed they made I'm going to call it a wild assertion that they were hunting for duck and they thought this was a duck. Or
they apparently got permits to hunt duck. Like, they went through all the rigmarole, which I could tell you, getting a hunting license in this state is not as simple as send me a check. You have to do a lot of stuff. So they put in the effort, they put in the time, they got a hunting license.
And then hopped the fence.
Googled duck versus swan. Yes. That was where they went
hopped
wrong.
The fence, kill the bird, kidnap the babies. I don't know if that's the right thing. Anyway, it turns out that these 2 of the babies end up at some local retail store here. They're suffering consequences from it. I'm not even sure what their relationship is, but if it's anything, probably deserved, I guess. But the thing made national media. I saw it in USA Today, all the local news things. I mean, it was being shared around Twitter. It was trending. It was all the things that you could possibly want out of a local news story, other than the fact that it was about a local swan being eaten for Memorial Day.
The story took a very xenophobic turn. Let's go with that, because it turned out to not be a bunch of rabble-rousers trying to cause trouble.
Now, I will say, we don't know. We only got one name so far, right?
Yeah.
Last name seems
Hussong.
Ethnic. Hussong, yeah.
Hussong.
Hassan. The 2 other teens were under 18, so their names were not released. They could have been Ben Hannon,
right?
And we don't know, right? I mean, it could have been just... So these people were workers at this retail store.
Oh.
They were co-workers. So I don't know that all 3 of the teens were related. They might not have been. So there could be just the one that we know, Aman Hassan, whatever his name is.
Yeah.
Who did not present well in the one piece of video footage where he looked kind of like a crazed Charles Manson.
He was laughing.
Right. He looked a little crazy with whatever. It didn't come across well. So it kind of fed into the whole thing that, oh my God, we got a crazy person in our midst. But anyway, so I'm guessing we'll get some additional news about the family or something, but I don't know. I don't know if they're going to out the family. Like, I'm guessing there are people who know.
Sure.
I have not done that research, nor do I think I ever will. But crazy. It was just a weird, the emotion was, expected, but man, it was really noticeable for a couple days where people were losing their minds. Everybody.
People were mad.
Yeah.
People like to get mad, though. It's just that simple.
Yeah, I guess.
I've kind of accepted it. But look, if the guy did literally, worst case scenario, this kid literally knew what he was doing, went in and did it every way. Yeah, get arrested, punish him, fine him, whatever.
Yeah, and that's why I said those kids should be punished. Whatever, you jumped the fence, right?
Yeah.
In their hunting, when they were filling out their hunting or doing their own,
It's so long.
Yeah, but I'm sure there was no part in there where they were like, when you're out hunting ducks and you come across a locked fence, jump it, right? So that was not part of their instruction. So I'm assuming this was a ad lib at best.
I think they definitely went a little off script.
They were like, oh, look. I mean, I'm sure they didn't know the bird couldn't fly, but they were like, oh, a bird's wings, a sitting duck, if you will.
Quite literally.
Yes.
Well, almost.
Almost figuratively, I guess. But anyway. So crazy story here out of the CNY. I don't know.
I
figured we should. Hey, I didn't have a strong opinion other than before I got in a name. Even before I got a name, I was like, all right, what scenario can I wrap my head around that makes this at least make a little sense, as opposed to we're living in a clown world, which I know we are.
Sure.
So, and again, these other two names, like literally, they could be, Shawn Hussong, and we don't know. Like they could be just normal Syracuse kids, not immigrants, who participated in should have known better and should have said something to stop it, or at least I don't know, something.
It's going to turn out that these two white kids were playing a practical joke on their boy. Amon was his first name?
Amon Hassan, yes.
Yeah, Amon, they were just playing a joke on him. They couldn't believe he actually went through and shot the Swan. Now they're in too deep.
Yeah. I don't think they shot him. I think they strangled him.
Stop.
Yeah.
So much worse. I just assumed they shot him.
No.
Oh, my God. That's messed up.
I'm almost positive. I don't think there was any shots fired. The Swan Pond is right in front of the Manly's police department, right?
No.
It's directly in front of it. It's right in front of it.
So they...
It's right there. Yeah, it's right there. There's the library, the police, and the Swan Pond.
Oops.
And the ice cream shop.
Oh, God.
Yeah. But anyway. I'm guessing, though, Swan's made for life, so apparently Manny's going to have to go. They have to relocate Manny and do something with the babies, and they have to start all over here. So it's a whole new clan coming into the town of Manly. So
It's not funny that they choked the Swan. I shouldn't have laughed. It just caught me very off guard.
Yeah, no. Yeah, there was no hunting technique.
That's awful.
Yeah.
I'm not messing with Amon. He's badass. Good Lord.
This is terrible.
Yeah, it is.
Let's move on to something more terrible, I guess.
Sure. Again, 5 people a week get murdered here. Nobody says anything, but one dude chokes a swan and we all lose our minds.
Fair. Like I said, I knew the story was going to get attention, but I just didn't know it was going to be crazy. So, but anyway, if you didn't know about the swan being eaten on Memorial Day, now you do. So you're welcome.
There you go.
You're welcome. All right. So another terrible person, Jeffrey Epstein. So we got a new. Let me pull this article up here for you guys. We got a new trove of names and documents from the calendar release that is happening here. So let me switch. Let me get to the actual story here. Wow, I'm messing up big time over here, Mr. Hill. Luckily, nobody can see what's going on in the background here. Just me and you.
All right, that's good. Because you are not batting 1,000 right now.
No. All right. Oh, my God. I totally changed something that I've never seen before. Now we're going to be in trouble. Okay, here we go. Man, this is solid live broadcasting here. Here we go. Exclusive.
There we go.
The Jeffrey Epstein files trove of never-before-seen emails, calendars gives an unprecedented insight into the late pedophiles network. So new names are listed here. Chris Rock.
Ouch.
Comedian. Peter Thiel. Tech entrepreneur. Richard Branson.
Not great.
Virgin person there, guy.
Virgin Galactic. Virgin
all that stuff. I mean, David Blaine. The magician. I don't want to make a blanket like all these people were participating in the evilness of the empire of Epstein there,
right?
And so I don't
benefit of the doubt
to some degree. All these calendar entries are after or post 2008, right? So all of these people should have known to some degree what was going on with this dude and who this dude was. Because I'm guessing you're not just being like, oh, this is just some rich dude who whatever. Like everybody knows, especially since enough people are out now being like, oh, yeah, we all knew back then. There's always been rumors about whatever. I'm like, okay, well then, so if there was rumors, then all these people, all these names in this calendar should have heard the rumors, right? So I don't want to give them a pass either, right? I mean, it would take I guess a pretty naive person just to overlook the information and not try to figure out anything. So I'm guessing we're going to get more names. These calendar things are again, just keep dripping out. And we got the U.S. Virgin Islands lawsuit still going on against J.P. Morgan. names is one thing, calendar meetings is another thing, and if you have 13 meetings in a month, you could probably say you're pretty tight with some of these people, like Jess Staley, for example, the former JP Morgan guy there who's being sued there. I don't know. None of this is anywhere close to the equivalent of a actual rock solid client list, which is what we're all looking for at this point, right? So like these names are interesting for sure. I see the Napster, Shawn Parker, the Napster guy. Did you have Napster back in the day?
Who didn't?
I mean, I used to had Napster on AOL dial-up, so like I spend my nights were just flooded with downloading shit from Napster. But anyway, yeah. I don't know. Tommy Mottola, former, I don't know if he's still the president of one of those entertainment companies. Used to married to Mariah Carey there. I don't know. I guess it really goes to kind of show this dude was connected beyond like any normal person. He literally is the evil Forrest Gump. Like the web of influence this dude had is like no other. There's no other person that I would point to and be like, oh yeah, that person is involved with entertainment and finance and science and all these politics, right. All this thing, in deep. I mean, I guess if you have, billions of dollars and videotapes of compromised individuals, I guess you can gain influence. But I don't know. We'll keep an eye on the Epstein list here. I like I said, new names out of this dump. Irina Shayk. I don't know who some of these people are. Wendy Murdoch. Apparently, that's one of the I think the Murdoch's ex-wives, I think, or whatever. But I don't know.
Woody Allen
has been out. He came out with the week before, so he came out in the Woody Allen dump with who else? I don't know. There was Noam Chomsky. Who else? It was like three or four other people who came out. That maybe even Jamie Dimon was part of that interest there. But again, it just goes to show the level of power and influence this guy was touching. So, and most like, I mean, we this was part of the thing where it didn't say he was bribing Bill Gates per se for underage actions or anything like that, but Epstein was clearly aware that Bill Gates had an affair with a Russian bridge player there, and basically held that over Gates's head. He said, it implied that if you didn't give me some money to whatever, this is going to be public news. So I mean, Epstein was clearly bribing people. I mean, blackmailing. I keep saying that backwards, but definitely blackmailing people. And to what end is kind of the underlying question for all of this. So let's move on to another scumbag, Hunter Biden, another trove of photos from the Hunter Biden laptop, which we are not going to go here to.
No?
But no. We've already seen it.
Come on.
No, we're not doing it.
Coward.
But yeah, we don't. We've seen enough. A small sample is plenty of. We know where they can go, I guess. But some of this stuff is going to come back to Hunter Biden. The New York Post do us fine here. I'll give you this one.
There we go.
Don't you feel better now?
That dude's healthy.
So if you're interested in checking out, these are apparently in chronological order, extracted from the laptop. So if you want to go do a timeline, apparently there's a bunch of nudes of Haley Biden in there, which they didn't publish, but I figured I would put that out there. Yes, that's Bo's widow / Hunter's girlfriend.
Right.
As I can't remember which of the congressmen said that. It was like, I don't know how you want to classify her, Bo's, widow or Hunter's girlfriend. I was like, oh my God, terrible. Anyway,
it's a rough one.
A bigger Hunter Biden story, though, I think, Mr. Hussong, is his defense of his gun charge. For if you're aware, this was the charge. Everybody was like, okay, well, he's in the videos. You could see he had a gun, and he clearly has a permit to have said gun. But on the questionnaire, it basically asked you if you were a drug addict, and he said no, and clearly he knew he was a drug addict, and whatever. So here we go. He is now fighting this drug charge the gun charge, basically citing his Second Amendment rights. So kudos to the Biden family for maybe
their newfound
bringing in a new a stronger Second Amendment here. So I found this. I'm going to follow this one a little bit long because this is interesting. Because this is, I figure, was the one charge that everybody's like, okay, everybody just agreed that this is a charge. You have this, you did this, you have that. Here's the charge. So I don't know, we'll see. Second Amendment might come in handy for Hunter Biden. So
Hunter Biden's Second Amendment warrior.
Yeah, you like that, right?
That's amazing.
Weird. What's the bedfellows thing?
Politics makes strange bedfellows.
Yeah, I guess so.
I did see something, and I don't know if this is true or not. I didn't have a chance to verify it. This said the site that was posting all of the Hunter Biden photos was shut down under the concern that it was dispensing child pornography.
Oh, well, that's not good.
If all they were posting was photos from the laptop, that's not good news.
Yeah, well, I don't think that would be, I mean, listen, I'm giving the benefit of the doubt of the person, but if the person who was running the laptop was purposely pulling down Haley Biden photos, why would they not pull down the kid ones? They would pull those down too. I can't imagine that would be the fact. I mean, they can cite whatever reason they want to pull down their website, but it is what it is, I guess. So I don't know.
Pro-Trump website pushes 10,000 photos from Hunter Biden's laptop.
We're living in a clown world.
Oh, God, that's outstanding.
Yeah, we're terrible.
You had to make it about Trump.
Always. Everything's about Trump.
I know.
All right. So if you want Epstein and Hunter Biden info, there's tons of it out there. I don't know. I'm guessing even if this website is taken down, there's other sites who have the pictures by now anyway. So I'm not going to go look for them. I'm sure you can if you have the time.
I don't think the real bad stuff's up there.
No, I that's what I'm saying. I don't think it was. I think it was purposely, redacted some of the
curated. If you will.
Yeah. They made sure that it was. What I thought was they were going to make sure that they were, I'm sure salacious but not illegal kind of things or not doxing or like they were going to try to
contain and control.
Right. Just kind of, but just display, right? Like here's what we found. But who knows? I don't know. All right. I guess we're going to talk about the debt ceiling here. I hate talking about stuff like the debt ceiling and other things, but because there's so much nuance and procedure stuff and technical stuff, and I don't know, there's just a bunch of different things that's hard to fully digest, I guess, in a 10-minute segment here, which we're going to try to do. But I really want to focus on one part of the debt ceiling. So, as you guys know, the debt ceiling passed with more Democrat votes than Republican votes, but a bipartisan fiscal responsibility act is what they called it. So I'm not sure that there's any fiscal responsibility really per se that anybody would point to here. But because I have a long leash of respect for Representative Thomas Massie, I'm going to... So Thomas Massie was part of, I feel like, the negotiation for the speakership that we're going to put Massie on the Rules Committee, which he is on the Rules Committee.
Yeah.
So the Rules Committee had to pass this bill out. It has to pass out of the Rules Committee before it can be voted on. And so there was a thought that Massie being there would be a check on all the things, right? Whatever the things that you're concerned about, because Massie has he's the guy who called Congress back in to vote on the $3 trillion Trump bill during COVID, right? Like, so everybody kind of has, whether or not you agree with his things, you're like, okay, at least he seems like a principled dude. Like, he seems to like have a priority list in his head, and he's trying to, whatever he thinks he can do to get the system to operate correctly. Sure. He's trying to, I feel like he's trying to do that.
Sure.
So he has, I have respect for him, whatever. I can see what he's trying to do. Whether or not he's successful is a thing here. So again, I'm not going to go through this article and what's in the daily or what's in the Fiscal Responsibility Act, but I want to go to so let me get some of this right here. So I'm I'm copied some of this from a Marjorie Taylor Greene tweet where she was basically coming to Thomas Massie's defense about what was agreed upon within this this new debt ceiling raise.
Yeah.
So, and listen, there's still an unchecked on Ukraine funding. There's a bunch of problems with this, right? So like, this is not me trying to be like cheerleader for this new debt ceiling raise. But if we're going to try to side with Thomas Massie here, so Massie, I don't know if it's somebody called it the Massie's debt ceiling tool. So it's a tool, and I'm going to read some of I paraphrase some of what Marjorie Taylor Greene was tweeting about. So I'm going to read some of this here. In the debt ceiling bill, there is a tool provided to us that requires the House to pass 12 separate appropriations bills from the 12 different appropriations subcommittees. And if we can't get them passed, then we automatically pass a funding CR, continuing resolution, with an automatic 1% cut to funding. So this is a way, and I'm going to just read a little bit more here. In the past, the 12 appropriations bills would get put together in bill packages anywhere from 3s to 6s. So they would group these appropriation subcommittee bills. Sure. They would group them by, whatever, and then get votes, and then put them out to vote that way. Because that was done so leadership could force everyone to vote for all 12 funding appropriations, even if they didn't agree on several of the appropriations bills. So this is like what they do in New York State, where they jam everything into the budget just because they're going to pass it, because this is where, if you're going to get anything passed, this is where you're going to get it passed. So the tool is supposed to break, at least slow down, if not put an end to this way of voting, right? So where we could conceivably, if we do get 12 separate appropriations bills, we then can start holding our representatives, our congresspeople, accountable to which of these appropriations bills they do vote for and don't vote for. And they won't have the defense of, well, I had to support the military, or I had to support this pet project, or this whatever, because the other appropriations bill were whatever. So in Massie, and if you look at this thing, I have, this is a tweet from June 2nd here. So for those of you playing at home, I encourage you to go look at, this is a tweet from June 2nd, 6:14 p.m., and I'll just read it here. So he has, it's a color-coded chart from the Congressional Budget Office. It says, where he's got arrows pointing to this year's spending, to next year's spending cap, and shows the 23 compared to 2023, 2024, and 2025. And it shows how with the CR, the 1% continuing resolution, they're actually, it's not a 1% slowing of growth. It's an actual 1% reduction of spending, right? So for all these other debt ceiling things that I've gone through, and there's been too many, so I don't really pay, this is why I didn't really want to talk about these. I feel like it gets way more attention than it actually should. There was a time where I thought it was, the thing, and I was like, okay, well, we can just end all this by just stop raising the debt ceiling. Why do we have a debt ceiling if we can just raise it, right? Like, I totally... What's
the point?
Right. And some people just want to get rid of it, and I'm not saying they should or shouldn't, but like at this point, we don't have one anyway, so whatever. But anyway, but really all of the previous debt ceiling discussions revolved around not cuts from the baseline spending. They were basically cuts from projected growth, right? So they were always increasing.
Right.
The spending was always increasing. No matter all these other debt ceiling raises, whatever, there was never a slowing of growth, ever a reduction of growth, ever zero, no times. So this setup puts something in place that could conceivably actually reduce federal spending, which it only works if Congress does their job, as Thomas Massie put it, and they have to go through this process of these 12 appropriations bills, and if they can't pass those, then 1% cut automatically kicks in January. Let's talk about this again in January, and we'll see what it looks like. I've seen some, high-level discussions, maybe something you could probably digest better than I could, talking about, technical analysis of this breakdown. like I said, it's not great. We're spending more this year for sure. And again, Ukraine doesn't have anything, there's no slowing of any kind of money going to Ukraine, whatever. But it's the first time where there actually could be something in place in the future that might be a measurable reduction in spending. And so, like I said, if Massie's right and Congress can do their job and fund these appropriation bills, I don't know, maybe we have progress. I've given, like, the debt ceiling thing to me is because it's such a, it's only one of a handful of ways where money technically gets allocated, kind of. But so is appropriations, right? So right. So if they can get the appropriation funding part of the government working, then some of the debt ceiling, the hullabaloo around the debt ceiling goes away. So I don't know. Fingers crossed for Thomas Massie's plan, I guess. I mean, he's getting killed. I mean, he's literally getting killed.
Well, he's getting killed by the people on the right and the more libertarian side of, like, how could you agree to this?
And people are like, we put you in power. This is why we gave you power. The first time we gave you had something and you blew it. And I've seen all the arguments. And like I said, I wish there was something that would have addressed Ukraine spending, but there's other ways to do that too. And this is not the end all be all of everything. And I think that maybe that ceiling gets too much credit or blame, if you whatever way you want to phrase it, for the spending, where there's other ways to control the spending too. Like, this is not the only way. So I don't know. Well, again, we'll see what happens in January and see how the spending turns out. But I don't know. I figured I would at least keep an open mind and see if Massie's gamble here pays off sometime in the near future.
So I actually agree with you. I hate the deal, and I hate the process that this deal always gets done by, of like, hey guys, we all know the system's broken. We all know there's massive problems. Both sides acknowledge it, and we got to fix it. But this isn't the time. This is too important. We are going to default in the United States. Now, meanwhile,
just for real quickly, I've heard the default thing so many times. Like, the federal government takes in so much revenue that they would never, the first thing that they're doing is always paying off the interest on the debt. Like, they have enough money to do that. Listen, it's getting larger, I fully acknowledge, and it's crazy how much it is, but that would be the first thing that they would always pay off.
Correct. All right. And it's not that Social Security is going to get eliminated. They're not going to be able to make the VA payments. Like, no, there's a lot of stuff that would go first. They're just using this to scare you. And I hate this whole process. And both sides do it. Look, we all know it's got to, but not this time. This time it's just too important. There is too much at stake. We just need to get something in. And so they give us this. The
most dramatic rose ceremony. I mean, the most dramatic debt ceiling raise ever.
Ever. So they give us this flaming bag of crap and say, look, I know it's not perfect, but it's better. So next time we'll do it. And then the next time rolls around and they're like, I know, but it's down to the wire. This came out of nowhere. This deadline's here. Like, no, the deadline's been set since the last flaming pile of crap that you set on fire and handed to me. You've known about it. You do nothing. You wait till the 11th hour, and then you jam this down everybody's throat and tell them to just smile and take it. So I hate the entire process. I hate the entire back and forth. At the same time, I hate this particular deal for the same reason. There's no such thing as spending cuts. All there are is we're not going to spend more as quickly as we originally wanted to, which is insanity. Like, hey, buddy, you got to eat less chips, to my kid. You gotta eat less chips. It's so unhealthy for you. It's so bad for you. Like, well, Dad, I've already projected that I was going to triple my chip intake by the next 2 years, but you know what? I'll only double it. Cutting. Like, that's the level of stupidity that gets jammed down our throats as American citizens, and we just smile and go, oh, thank God I'm not on the other team. So I hate every part of this, and I made this point earlier. The Republicans only care about spending when the Democrats are in charge and there's a Democratic president. That's it, which is somehow still more often than the Democrats care about spending. Like, that's just the reality of the two parties. So we got this deal. I hate it, but I actually do. Like, Thomas Massie, I don't like that he's on board with it, and it hits me wrong.
Yeah.
But I agree. He's earned a certain benefit of the doubt that most politicians have not earned with me to go, okay, I'm willing to like not drag you right now just to see what happens. Like, I'm curious to see how this plays out. So let's find out.
Yeah. And he, if you can, he's posted a few things about this, and he was signaling before this that he was basically going to vote yes for it because he was putting out information pre-vote that was kind of like making you think about it if it was going to pass. Just think about these things, kind of thing. So I think, listen, he's taking his, I say he's taking his reputation, but I mean the thing he did in COVID will always be the thing that he should be remembered by. I mean, the fact that he brought all of Congress back to vote on the biggest spending bill in the history will never change, right? He did that. He's always has that. His when Trump called him a third-rate politician, and then he defended himself, he says he's at least second-rate. So he'll live in infamy, and deservingly so. He that was a defining moment for him, and I think it which is the reason why I want to give him the benefit of the doubt here. And we didn't mention we didn't have this part of the discussion here, but
this man is not well.
Sorry. All right, but so
Stop letting him lead the country. Stop forcing him out there. He is not well.
Go check out Thomas Massie. Oh, I forgot Thomas follows me.
Look at you big shot.
I don't know, something like that. But anyway, so I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt
because he follows you.
Because he follows me, and I'm cool with it. But because he's built up
some credit.
Yeah, he's built up again a long leash of credibility with me, and I'm gonna, again, hopefully in January he can basically say I told you so, like he did with the COVID thing, right?
I also freely acknowledge Thomas Massie understands the appropriation, spending, and rules processes far more than I ever will.
Yeah, if you go back on his timeline, he gives like a 5. He's like, this is how money is spent in the federal government. He lists the thing. He's like, the fact that you read this, you know more about how money is spent when I got here in Congress. So he basically says, like, there's multiple ways the money gets spent, and these are the ways, and the debt ceiling being one of them. And those were part of those tweets were pre-vote. So those were some of the things where I'm like, okay, I can see he's setting up this is going to pass, and this is what we need to do now kind of thing when it does pass. So again, fingers crossed that Massie pulls this off, and if he does, man,
all the better.
Massie 2028. I don't think he'd ever run for president, but interesting. I don't know. Like I said, I just wanted to, with all the fire and heat and hate and all the other stuff for the Republicans who did vote for it, maybe there's a silver lining.
Big mad
for sure. So, all right, let's move on. We're going to talk a little bit about COVID vaccines.
It's been a while. Why not?
Yeah. And we have a couple different stories that we can talk about the COVID vaccines. First, remember when they were locking down schools for everybody's safety all over the place?
Because kids were enormous vectors of disease, and long COVID was rampant, and kids were dying, even though the anti-vaxxers like you and me were saying they weren't.
Yeah.
I remember.
Headline: 0 young healthy individuals died of COVID-19, Israeli data shows.
But how they rate young is anybody under the age of 49.
18 to 49. 0 deceased of 18 to 49-year-olds with no underlying conditions from the Israel Ministry of Health.
So that's about 10 million people, about 9.5 million.
So,
Israel.
Shocked face? I mean, when people ask me, so obviously in 2020, it was 3 years ago, so I was under 50 in this exact age group, and people who said, like, why wouldn't you get the vaccine? I'm like, I'm a 49-year-old, like not obese with no underlying condition. Like, why would I get it? Like, what do you mean? So, and this was the exact reason, like, because people like me and those younger than me, like you and everybody else, were at real no risk ever of this disease.
We got very good at saying this. The statistical risk of death for me from COVID is 0. That doesn't mean I couldn't get hit by that bolt of lightning, but statistically, the risk was 0. And that was what we established early on here as we were reading and watching and researching and learning and listening. And then the idea that this was then, now you got to flip back around to, so if the risk of death was roughly 0, which it always was. By the way, they didn't voluntarily give this up. They got sued and had to disclose this information.
Yeah, it was a freedom of information request by attorney Ori Zabi.
Sure.
Orixabi.
Yeah,
cool name.
I believe he was the one who commented
on it. Sounds like a Star Wars character.
0 is not open to much interpretation. Yeah. 0 is 0. So this is where my point again of, if you look back, and just bear with me here, this was not unexpected. This was not like, oh my God, how did this happen? This is what the data indicated all along. If you actually looked at the raw data, if you listen to the people at the CDC, then yeah, this is shocking and you had no idea and you think this can't be right.
We mentioned in real time how the average age of death of COVID was higher than the life expectancy.
Yeah, was higher than life expectancy. And the average number of comorbidities was like 6. And yet somehow when they tested the vaccines, nobody had any comorbidities. Like, I didn't know you could find 46,000 people without comorbidities in the United States. I'm blown away that they found that.
Didn't even ask me.
I know, these idiots. Anyways, so this is where I'll go take it to is, so we know now that anybody under the age of 49 was at a statistically insignificant risk of death if they had no comorbidities or if they were even in good health. Let's just not even say exemplary. Here's the question that I have for you. And knowing the vaccines were never once tested to see if they block transmission. Never, ever, ever. How, ask yourself this truly, how did the vaccines ever get approved for emergency use authorization for people under the age of 49?
Or 6.
Or 6.
Or whatever the number is.
Like, you're talking, there's zero basis in science for this to have been approved on an emergency use. Because even if you thought, a long COVID or whatever else, but that's not what they put in on the emergency use authorization application. It wasn't that. It was the only thing they could say was a reduction in the number of people getting COVID. You don't do emergency use for something that is ultimately psychosomatic. You don't. It was the death. That was why they pushed it. That was why they kept going, and they kept saying, well, now it looks like it's transmission. And we kept saying, you can't say that. You have no idea. That's insane. You didn't test for that. And we got called science deniers and everything else because, some of us took the time to
theorists
read contrarian opinions and look at data for ourselves, and we were too stupid to understand it. Somehow we were right again. But I know that's a funny question and it's sort of sarcastic and rhetorical, but at the same time, I don't mean it rhetorical at all. Outside of blatant corruption and pay to play, what could these scientists, if their motives were genuine, but they just made a mistake, how did they approve any of these COVID vaccines for emergency use authorization when it had no data to support the fact that it blocked transmission and the people that they approved it for were at no risk of dying of COVID? Now, they could have done, anybody 65 plus, anybody 50 and over, your emergency use authorization is approved. Anybody under 59, you can get it, but you need to demonstrate that you have some significant health problem that warrants the emergency use authorization. But they didn't do that. They said anybody. Then they started offering incentives. Then they started making threats. Then they started trying to coerce people. Then they tried to block your travel. Then they tried to make you 2 tiers of citizens, all for a vaccine that never prevented transmission from a virus that was at a statistical 0% chance of killing you. And then they tried to lie and cover up the data until they got sued. So there's the American government's even worse. They're still not, they have the Pfizer data, the one they asked for 70 years to hand it all over, and they're just slow dripping it out.
So I don't know if this will infuriate you like it did me. So I had somebody out petitioning for some Republican candidates during the independent petitioning period that just ended. Came to my door. And I'm like, all right, I'll sign. Who am I signing for, right? And I named some. I'm like, oh, this person hates me. I'm like, I'll sign anyway, whatever. I'm just signing because I'm nice.
Right.
I get to the point, at the last one, I'm like, oh, this one I know. I don't know this other person. The guy, he's like, and the guy's a well-known. This guy's running for office as well. He knows me as who
most of them do in local politics.
And so I'm being as cordial as I can signing his sheets because I don't have to. I could be like, go F yourself.
Right.
But I can't remember the last person. I'm like, oh, this person's new. She probably hates me too. And he's like, nobody hates you. And I'm like, I almost said his name. I'm like, everybody hates me. I'm like, I totally get it. Like, he's like, why do they hate you? And I'm like, ever since COVID. I mean, like, he's like, because I called out Ryan as a petty tyrant and basically, was in over his head, basically. I don't remember exactly what I was saying, but I insinuating that
it was used more than once.
And he was like, oh no, that's just water under the bridge. So he didn't care about COVID at all anymore. Like, because his guy was terrible at it. Like, it's water under the bridge to that dude now. I'll never forget. So
listen, I think it's hilarious that the people that were wrong are like, all right, you know what? It's all done. Nobody's mad about you anymore. Like, well, why would you be mad at me? I was right.
Yeah.
How are you going to be mad at me? Like, I said things that were accurate and true. Well, you were jamming down authoritarian measures down everybody's throats, limiting businesses, putting people out of work. And somehow I'm supposed to be the one, like, oh, you're ready to move on and just forget about it? Oh, how benevolent of you.
Yeah.
How about an apology? How about hey, just a mea culpa? I don't need a personal apology.
Yeah.
How about an acknowledgement that you were wrong and terribly wrong?
And I took the hiring of the new Onondaga County health director there, who was served on the original COVID team, like, as a clear acknowledgement of, like, we didn't learn shit, right? Like, we're like, oh, we're just going to double down on these terrible people who were not good at the beginning just because they were good, or, because they were on our side or whatever. Like, there's that person just failed up, and it's happens.
There's no consequence
nonstop.
for being
None.
wrong.
Zero.
And somehow there were consequences for you for being right.
Yeah.
Like,
oh yeah,
you were right, but you were in the minority. So now, like, nope, we can't have you do all this. Like,
I'm the terrible person.
Right. It's just, that's what's so confusing about all of this. And the more data that comes out like this, really, is people don't want to know. People don't want to see this. They don't want to look at it. They don't want to consider. They don't want to consider this possibility. It's just, but it's reality.
Yeah. You want to know who doesn't also want to know?
Who?
Former President Donald Trump.
Oh, no, he does not.
All right, so I'm going to set this up a little bit. This is Trump speaking at a rally in Iowa, and I don't think you can really hear the question being asked from the crowd, but it's about vaccines. And I'll read from, this is, I got to pull up a tweet here from Citizen Free Press. The Iowa voter, and they have the quotas. We have lost people because of you supported the jab, which is obviously the vaccine. And you'll be able to hear Trump's response here pretty clearly. But basically, this is somebody in the crowd. I'm guessing a Republican,
Probably.
maybe even a former Trump supporter, but who knows? But basically expressing concern to Trump about the vaccine. So let me play this, and then we'll talk about it.
Yeah. What do you think you would do here? Yeah, well, everybody wanted a vaccine at that time. And I was able to do something that nobody else could have done, getting it done very, very rapidly. But I never was for mandates. I thought the mandates were terrible. And there's a big portion of the country that thinks that was a great thing. You understand that. Not a lot of the people in this room, but there is a big portion.
All right, so complete disconnect from reality here.
The ego on this man never ceases to amaze.
And so he obviously talks about his, how Operation Warp Speed, how great it was. And, I think we talked about this. He probably would have signed him each syringe in gold ink if you were to let him. And remember, he tried to take credit for the COVID checks or whatever it was. He was like, oh, but my name, he literally wanted to have like Donald Trump checks going out to everybody. Because he's an egomaniac. But anyway, so this is going to be his downfall. I feel like, if there is one in the Republican side.
There is one. Yeah, I agree with that. That's
so.
crazy.
In the fact that he's trying to run, did you see the thing I shared where former Governor Cuomo came out and like, finally Trump speaking the truth. New York did it right during COVID. Florida got it wrong, right? I'm paraphrasing, but that was basically the fact that Andrew Cuomo is coming to your defense. You're on the wrong side of history so far that he's literally disconnected. I don't know if he's just going to try to, if he actually knows it, and he's just going to lie through it and be like, I'm not going to admit any blame. The vaccine was great. And so I don't know if he's going to do that or if he really is just disconnected and thinks the vaccine was a wonderful thing. I can't believe that's true, the second part. I think he's just going to, I think he's got to realize that it was a bad thing, net negative and by far. And it should be the thing that takes him down. If he's going to go down,
it's the failure to learn. It's the failure to acknowledge you got anything wrong. That's what's so frustrating about it. The CARES Act was you. Operation Warp Speed was you. The initial recommendation for 2 weeks to slow the curve and putting Anthony Fauci front and center in our lives was you. You did all these things. The sale of offensive weaponry to the Ukraine was you. Like, the idea that you can't acknowledge that there was negatives that came along with this shows you're not willing to learn from any of these mistakes. So you're going to run with all this bluster and everything else to come into and if you somehow win, you're not going to drain the swamp. You're going to surround yourself with terrible people once again, and you're going to do whatever you think makes your brand and legacy look the best. That's it. That's who you are now. That's what I have no reason to believe you're not going to be at this point. Do I think what they're doing to you from a national media and establishment standpoint is wrong? Yep, absolutely. But you want my full-throated support, I can't give it to you. Not even close. I can't give you half my support because you can't acknowledge anything you did was incorrect. So if you can't learn from your mistakes, why in the world do I think we should send you back?
Like, how easy of a pivot would have been, like, at some point within the last year and a half being like, I was lied to by Birx and Fauci. I'm never going to do that again. Lesson learned. Like, take the mea culpa.
He'll win by 30.
Right. It would have been a landslide. I guess that's narcissist behavior is just never being able to admit that you're wrong ever. Zero. I mean,
yeah, it turns out eliminating all the safeguards for drug development from pharmaceutical companies may not have been the best idea ever. I shouldn't have listened to those people.
Yeah. Crazy. I don't know. Like I said, the vaccines and the initiation of the 2 week to slow the flatten the curve should be the reasons why he's unelected. Like, he should be disqualified. Like, voters should be like, no, you got it wrong. Too bad. Like, way wrong. Like, and without admitting it at all, like, it should just be over. But
and then he started going after, like, Kemp down in Georgia, and these governors are like, we're opening up, and he's like, it's too soon. They're gonna ruin our progress.
Yeah.
Like,
right. And then I saw Trump went up 3 points in the poll, and DeSantis went down 2 in the last. I was like, okay, whatever. I mean, they're polls, so who knows? Long way away till 2024. But
yeah, we got time.
But this is, I mean, listen, if I was in DeSantis's camp, this is where I'd be just hitting Trump
over and over,
like just like a,
Hey, remind me who initiated Operation Warp Speed? Who was it that had the capacity to fire Anthony Fauci at any time?
Yeah.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. All right. One more COVID vaccine story, and this will be a tease for our Wednesday interview. And
yes,
before we get into this last article, I'll remind everybody again to please like and share the video, subscribe to the channel, and leave us a 5-star rate and review if you listen to us in podcast form. So this is from the Brownstone Institute. Headline says, the VaxGene files, kind of a, whatever, an accidental discovery.
Uh-oh.
And so I'm going to start here with our boy, Kevin McKernan. So Kevin McKernan is going to join the show Wednesday for a little maybe 30, 40-minute interview I asked for. So he has agreed to do that. So we're going to do this Wednesday morning and post that video out Wednesday afternoon, evening sometime. But Kevin McKernan is a PCR expert, if you will, a scientist, worked on the Human Genome Project, has done the similar work for the cannabis. So he has the cannabis. He's, I don't know what the right term. I'm losing my my words here, but has done the cannabis genome and published that as well to the public record, so people can have access to that. But the story reads here in the Brownstone Institute, the story begins with Kevin McKernan, a scientist with 25 years experience in the genomic field and leading expert in sequencing methods for DNA and RNA. He has worked on the Human Genome Project and more recently, medical genomics involving DNA sequencing. That's kind of what I basically said there. So in the process of trying to sort out sequencing problem, McKernan used anonymously sent Pfizer and Moderna COVID-19 bivalent vaccines to act as mRNA controls. And so he's trying to do some kind of sequencing, and this is something that we'll ask for more specification on. I don't want to need to break it down here right now. But basically found what is described here as plasmid, should not have been there, plasmid DNA in these vials of vaccine. So basically they were contaminated with DNA and RNA, I believe, as well. But again, this plasmid DNA is seemingly a problem because it can be active in the body after it's basically injected, right? So if, these are these are anonymous vials, a very obviously small sample size of testing here. But I mean, if this is real and there's, contaminated vaccines being distributed all over the world to the tunes of, tens of millions of vaccines, I could see this not going well. To say the least.
I think the problem comes back to, and we'll go more into this with Mr. McKernan. There's so much we don't know and we didn't know, and therefore, if you want to emergency rush this thing on, fine, but man, you got to go with like the population that is at risk, and it was not everybody. That's the simple reality. And people kept pointing out, hey, it's possible that this is going to happen, and they got laughed out of the room. Like, oh, idiots, they just don't understand. There's no way. And now it's like, hey, there does appear to be some DNA in at least some of these vaccine sequencing. They're like, oh, well.
Yeah. And
that probably doesn't mean anything anyway.
Yeah, and so,
And the reality is it might not mean anything, but we don't know.
Right, and so here's the kicker in the article here. It's like the Pfizer and Moderna vials of bivalent vaccine that McKernan tested were contaminated with DNA encoding the spike gene and potentially capable of inserting into genome of an organism. So this is could be a serious health issue if the vaccine is able to insert this contaminant DNA into the person. I mean, it's it's all the things that we all the conspiracy theories we're talking about at the beginning of gene therapy and blah 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 whatever. In an accidental discovery here, it might actually have been somewhat true or some weird variation of that. It seems terrible. So
all the things we are assured couldn't be possible, not necessarily happen, but you can't say are impossible anymore. That's the problem.
Yeah,
you just don't know.
And so again, I'm excited to talk to Kevin. We haven't talked to him in a little over a year. So, and this will be again our first interview with anybody, I feel like, since we've gone exclusively to Rumble. So I see it getting talked about a little bit, and so
let's dig in.
Yeah, he was excited to come on, so we're excited to have him as always. And so, a reminder, that interview is going to be in 2 days, Wednesday, June 7th, I think it is. So please check back with us on that for that exclusive interview, and hopefully we'll have his breakdown of this article and some other things here. So I've seen him, he's got his own Substack as well. I think this is it right here. So feel free to subscribe to the, I'm not even going to try to pronounce his freaking name. He's got too many consonants and syllables.
Fair.
But anyway, he's got his own Substack. So subscribe there. I'll share that all with you guys on Wednesday when we're done with the interview there. So, all right, Mr. Hussong, anything we would like to leave the folks with a little uplifting? Maybe not swan eating?
No. If you got to climb a fence to get the animal, you probably broke the law. It's just a good rule of thumb.
Yeah, even for immigrants.
Even for immigrants. And don't choke it to death. Oh, God, it's horrible.
Yeah, well, again, it's a terrible story. That's not what I wanted.
That caught me so off guard when you said that. Like, I literally thought he broke into a public park and shot this thing. And I was like, oh, listen, I get it.
The Swan Pond's about as big as my backyard.
But you're telling me now he went into a fenced-off area in front of a police department, grabbed the swan by the throat, and just put it down. And then took the babies. That's weird.
For pets.
Something's off.
Or future meals. Maybe they had holiday dinners planned for those babies.
I think, never mind.
Terrible. This is a terrible story. This is not how we want to end the story.
It's so much worse than I thought it was.
Yeah. All right. Let's get out of here.
All right.
All right. We'll see everybody Wednesday for the interview, and then again back Monday for episode 136.